Many people say they find various aspects of JoJo very confusing to understand, perhaps such as the Lokakaka. In more often cases, however, people find themselves having trouble understanding certain stand abilities, the most common probably being King Crimson. I often hear about other abilities being outed as confusing as well, such as Weather Report's Heavy Weather or D4C's Whole Stick. But I have additionally made a realization that has never before been discussed. But now look, let's first go through these other abilities I just mentioned to show you how they're real simple to understand. So we're going to start with King Crimson, of course. King Crimson's main ability is to skip up to 10 seconds of time. It further has a sub-ability that allows it to see exactly 10 seconds into the future, which obviously pairs perfectly well with its main use. What many tend to get confused about here is the primary ability. It is stated that he cannot act during a race time, but then they will point out scenes such as him packing up his hotel room or cutting off Trish's hand. These do not conflict with the rules of his ability, however. See, all you gotta understand is that Diavolo's own fate still occurs, it just no longer affects Diavolo himself. If Trish's fate is to have her hand cut off by Diavolo, and time is skipped, that fate is still going to occur for her. Similarly, Diavolo's own fate was to enact that action. Let's bring the hotel thing into this explanation as well. Diavolo's fate was to do this action. However, he skipped time. This doesn't prevent his fated actions from occurring, it just prevents him from having to interact with anything, and thus from being seen. Okay, I'm just gonna pause for a second. So I have a slight issue. While I was editing this video, the Steel Ball Run anime has dropped, and that's really cool. This next section, I'm talking about Steel Ball Run. So if you do not want any spoilers, I would highly recommend you skip to this timestamp right here. Should have put one on screen, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, back to the video. Now, do you have any other questions? Maybe even about this scene on screen? Doesn't matter, we're moving on. Next up is D4C. The argument here is mainly because of the Who Shot Johnny Joestar arc. To be honest, while reading, I don't know what the hell was going on, but it explains itself just fine at the end. Now we know about how D4C's ability allows Valentine to jump between parallel worlds upon being smushed between two surfaces and or objects. He can further use this to force other people to enter these same parallel worlds, which works great in his favor, as if anything parallel comes into contact with itself, it will explode, with the exception of himself, of course. Now with our newfound understanding, let's look at this panel from near the end of the story arc, shown after each side of the story was told. We can see that both Wakapipo and Diego are supposedly inside of each other. However, that isn't the case. This shot is combining multiple shots from parallel worlds into one, although excluding Valentine. We then see the bystanders in the park looking onward. You may then question how each bystander didn't see the same thing, and the simple answer to that is because after Johnny was shot in each world, Valentine brought in witnesses from each world respectively and placed them into the main world to confuse Gyro. Boom, debunked, let's keep it moving. So Kakaka is something I'm honestly surprised to see people not understand, as I think it was explained very well in the story, especially simpler and far more straightforward than any alternate answer I could find online. I actually only think the reason some people get confused about this is due to not having actually read JoJolion. Although I highly encourage this, I'll just explain it anyway. Basically, the fruit performs equivalent exchange. You may have heard that repeated again and again and again, but what does that actually mean? Well, let's use some examples. If you are missing your eyesight and you eat a Lokakaka, then you will regain your eyesight. However, you could lose something such as your hearing in return, and this would be visually shown by your ears turning into stone. Or, well, maybe your eardrums, I guess. But that's all there is to say, really. I won't get into the new Lokakaka or about Josuke, aka Gappy. If I want to explain everything, then that's just like its whole own video. Now let's move into the final uncertainty before I get to the big focus, because there's probably like nothing else about JoJo people don't understand, you know? Anyway, Heavy Weather is an automatic sub-ability of Wes Aquamarine's Weather Report. The ability creates rainbows embedded with subliminal messages inside of them. These messages make people think they're turning into snails, but this is a stand ability, which means it actually does have the power to enact such a thing. This is why Pucci is able to avoid the messages by removing his eyesight, since the ability works by tricking your mind to perceiving yourself as a snail, aka the activation requirement is unable to reach that step. If you're further confused on why the ability isn't one-to-one with the stand, remember that it's just a sub-ability. Plenty of other stands have sub-abilities, like Killer Queen and the previously mentioned King Crimson. Now with all that out of the way, let's get into him. I don't think I've ever seen Stray Cat mentioned as confusing. But what could be so perplexing about this guy? I mean, just look at him. He's freaking adorable. But I'm gonna be the first to say he makes no goddamn sense. I honestly cannot, for the life of me, understand this little guy. His ability is to make bubbles using the air. In what way does that relate to being revived as a plant because you were buried in the ground after being hit by the arrow? No, but I'm genuinely being so serious right now. Like, I cannot tell you how this creature lives on. Like he's really cute, and it made the story really good, but I don't really know. Yeah, I don't have any words, man. I wouldn't call it a sub-ability because it's just like a one-time thing from what we know, and it doesn't even slightly or vaguely relate to the air bubbles. Actually, well, people like to say cats have 9 lives, and from that we can infer it being part of the reason. Like, you know, maybe how it's revived, of course. But what I still don't understand is, like, why it's a plant, you know? I mean, I would imagine that if that's all there is to it, and he has 9 lives, then he would revive and dig himself out of the ground. How does that translate to him turning into a plant? And then we also have another issue that I can't explain. It's shown he very clearly doesn't like when his nose is covered, so we can infer from this that he still needs to breathe. But that assumption would conflict with what is shown to us in depth, being how Killer Queen cannot detonate a bomb that's inside of Stray Cat's protective bubble because of it not having oxygen. That just confuses me, because what in the hell is he breathing then? Is he breathing the sunlight rays to photosynthesize? I don't know, man. Stray Cat's reincarnation is something I'll probably never know the answer to, unless Hamlin Beat comes into my DMs and tells me about how in 2007, on April 1.5th at 3:49 p.m., Rocky answered in an interview that it's because Tama was an outdoor cat. Jokes aside, that's gonna be in the video. Feel free to comment about how you think Stray Cat's reincarnation works. I'm curious to see what other ideas people may have. Oh, and real quick, I just want to show this Rocky trying a stray cat I found. Little dude is looking rough. By the way, if you're wondering about the background footage, it's a really cool unreleased game. I'm making you join it through the Discord link in the description. Now have a good rest of your day. That's all from me. He's little dude, little